Welcome back, everybody. As you can guess from this rig in front of me, as well as the title of the video and the guns used in the beginning, today we're going over these scopes right here. We have 3 of them, and these are the Primary Arms. These are their 3 to 18 first focal plane scopes, and I've actually had these in since before they were released, probably 6 months before they were released. And this one here, which is the R grid with the 2B, I think was the prototype I've had. So I've had these in for over a year at this point, put thousands of rounds through them, and have absolutely been a fan of them for a number of reasons. Number one is just going to be the value versus performance sort of ratio that you get. So like I said, first focal plane, what that means for folks who are new is that regardless of the reticle that you get, and they do offer these in a number of different reticles, regardless of the reticle you get, it will be true in terms of usability at any of the magnification ranges. So at 3, for instance, with the R grid here, which is a mill-based reticle, if you mill it, you know, like you traditionally would using a mill reticle, you can be on at 3 versus 18. They're all the same. The math's the same. However, of course, when you crank it up, you can see your targets a little bit better, of course, and make a little bit more fine aiming corrections in reality. But math-wise, it's the same at any magnification, which certainly is nice. A lot of folks like that. It has a very good eye relief eye box on it for a scope of this magnification range. So I've never had an issue shooting from barrier or anything like that where I've not been able to get, you know, good eye relief in that shooting position. So we'll sort of come in close, take a look at it, and then get into the reticles as well coming up next. Getting into the details of the scope, at the back end here we do have our eye focus ring. So what this does is it allows you to focus the scope and the reticle to your eye. Everyone's eyes are different, and what point you set it at is going to be dependent on your eyesight. So there is that, but there's a lot of adjustability in there, as you guys can see, to set it up as you see fit for you. Then we have our magnification lever here, and what's nice is it has this raised portion here. I mean, yeah, you could absolutely do it just fine in terms of manipulation without it, but it's much faster to be able to do that. So if you were like on a hunting rig or something like that, you'd probably have it set up at the 3, and then, you know, for snapshots that might come up as you like walk around the corner and see a deer standing there. But if you need to take a longer range shot, you can very quickly rotate it out to the 18 magnification mark. Now the turrets here, they're pretty nice. On the mill ones, you're going to have 14.5 mils of adjustment, and on the MOA, you're going to have 50 MOA of adjustment. So what's nice about these is they're essentially very field friendly. So right now, the position that they're in, you guys can see that it's locked in. I can't turn it even if I want to. However, when you want to adjust it, you pop up. It's very tactile, audible. And then my microphone's probably not going to pick it up because I'm wearing a lavalier microphone, but each click, very tactile, very audible. You know it's there, and then whenever you get to the position that you want it at, you just put it down like that. And if you want to actually set it up for your zero, you can just unscrew these little pieces here, pull it off, put it back down where your zero is, so that way you're not going to get lost in your turrets if you're trying to dial in a firing solution if you have the R grid here. Now, of course, the ones that have BDC type reticles, like this one here with our HUD DMR, this one is still going to have the same locking turrets, and typically on a scope that has a BDC reticle, I don't want turrets that move around freely, and this one, of course, meets that objective. While they're not capped, as long as they're pushed down, they're not going anywhere. You can turn it as hard as you want. It ain't going to turn. On the left side of the scope, from the shooter's perspective, you guys can see we do have our parallax adjustment. It goes from 10 yards out to infinity. It stops there at 500 and then goes to infinity, of course. So that'll let you set the parallax for the ranges that you're shooting at. It's right on in my experience. You know, shooting a lot of guns with these scopes on there at 100 yards for accuracy testing, I can tell you set it at 100, that's where it's going to be clear and focused in on. So that certainly is good. We have our illumination here, which is nice. Whether or not a scope is daylight bright is something that is always debated in the comment section. I would say that this is brighter than previous generations of the Primary Arms. However, is it designed to function as a red dot? Probably not, but if you're in a low light, like dusk or dawn type of situation, and you want that illumination, it's absolutely going to work just fine there. What I like about it is that it has stops in between. I've said this a million times, but any illumination should be set up like that. Simply because it allows you to set it wherever you want. So if you're at between 4 and 5 and that's what you like, you just have to move it one turn and it positively clicks into 4 and the illumination comes on, and vice versa. You just put it in that middle point there and it is off. It takes a CR2032 battery. It does come with one as well. It also comes with scope caps. I should mention that. I generally don't use them, but I know some folks do. So it does come with flip scope caps if that's something that you're into. As of right now, these scopes are offered with 5 or 6 different reticles. However, I'm going to walk you through the 3 that I have real quickly here. There's dedicated videos on each of these reticles. If you go to Primary Arms YouTube channel, that'll be better than what I'm about to do, but we'll give you kind of an oversight here. First up, we'll take a look here at the Hera MOA reticle, BPR MOA. When you first look at it, it looks like a basic Christmas tree reticle. And to some extent it is. However, it's got some features in there that a lot of your Christmas tree style reticles aren't going to have. So number one, it has the ability to hold over. So that's important if a lot of guys like to zero their rifles at longer ranges. So if you like to zero your rifle at 300 yards, whatever the case may be, it'll allow you to hold under. So that way, if you're shooting in close, you have the ability to do that. There's other reasons you might want to do that too. Some high angled shooting will call for that. It really just depends, but it gives you the option, and a lot of reticles don't do that. You can see there it has a nice fine chevron tip right there in the middle to allow you to get a good precise zero on there. And then one thing that's different again from a lot of MOA reticles is it allows you to break it down into half MOA if you're really trying to precisely determine the size of a target out there by using the MOA measuring system. Between the vertical stadia and then the outside of the chevron, that's 0.5 MOA. Then going out on your windage, you can see there that you have the first large tick mark is 5 MOA, and then it goes to 10. It's clearly marked, so that way you're not going to forget where you're holding. Continuing on down, we'll see the same thing there on the outer edges. The dots are going to be a little bit larger, a little bit bolder to allow you to kind of pick that up and then give you those 1 MOA holds within them. It's nice because it has a large bar there at the 10 and 20 and 30, etc. on the way down. It's just a way to get a quick reference when you're out there in that Christmas tree reticle. A lot of guys, I referenced getting lost in your turrets earlier. A lot of guys get lost in reticles and forget where they're holding. It gives you a point of reference that's big, quick, and bold. Of course, it also says the 5, 10, 20, 30, etc. on the way down. Again, that's excellent. So if you know that your hold is 30 MOA, you can easily find it. You can quickly get on it, and you can quickly make that shot before, say, like the animal moves or whatever the case may be with whatever that you're shooting at. Also, we should point out that in the top right corner there, you do have the ability to get a quick range of an individual. So if this is very familiar to most of you guys who have used the ACSS system. It's auto ranging things that are 18 inches wide, which is what the military generally uses for a human being, whether it be their torso standing up looking at you, their hips, their shoulders, etc. If you auto range it and the range of that person comes out to fit the top bracket there, they're 400 yards away, and then so on down to 1,000 yards out. Again, you can also use it by putting the person's foot on the baseline, the windage portion of the stadia, and then as they go up, it ranges them as if they were a 5'10" person, which again is the military standard for auto ranging. And if that person's top of their head is at the 6, well then they're approximately 600 yards away, and you can engage with the dope that you have for your rifle using the rest of the reticle. The next reticle we're going to take a look at is the R-Grid 2B. So they had an R-Grid out years ago. I've had several other scopes with it. It's a good reticle for sure. However, this one, in my opinion, they just improved on it like Primary Arms tends to do. So again, looking at it from afar, it's going to look like a Christmas tree style reticle because it is. However, there's a lot going on there that isn't always in some of the other offerings out there on the market. Once again, we have that really nice fine chevron for getting your 0 point. And then we have the donut of death around it. At 3X, it's very usable for close-in shooting as well, which is nice. And then you'll see down below the chevron, you see that little dot right there. That's 0.5 mil. So that way, if you're trying to mill something out and you need that amount of measurement, you have it there. And again, it's good at any magnification level. Off to the left, you'll see those small little hash marks there on your windage line, windage stadia line, and those are going to be 0.2 mil increments, so that way you can, again, very finely measure something out, particularly if it's either a smaller object or if it's at further distance. And if you go up there on your vertical stadia line just above the chevron tip, those are actually down to 0.1 mil increments on there. So very nice in terms of giving you fine measurements if you need it. So a lot of scopes just don't have that. A lot of them will just go down to 0.5 and kind of stop there. However, again, that's not what you get here with this reticle. Moving out on your windage lines, you'll see the 468 and 0 markers out there for windage holds on stadia line. Then moving on down, just like the MOA had the 10, 20, 30, etc. Marked boldly there, this one has the 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. down. So every 2 mils, it's very largely printed there on the side. And the same thing there, we have our bar tacks at the in-between point. So we have it at 5 there, right in the center, again, to prevent you from getting lost. And then also at a 10 mil, and it goes down to the 15 mil as well. You get those sort of bar tacks that look a little bit different than the other stadia lines. So that way it's a quick reference point. If you know your target is, 15 mils away, you can very quickly reference it, hit it, get on it, and then use your wind holds appropriately. The wind holds are spaced out there at 0.5 mils, which is nice. Again, a lot more measuring and correction data rather, if you miss your first shot, than what you're going to get with a lot of other mill reticles out there. Over on the top right, as you see it, there's also an auto ranging section, which is nice. It gives you the ability to auto range a person based on military standards. So military standard says the average person's 5'10" and approximately 18 inches wide. So if you put those lines out there on the person and their shoulders line up there at the 4, then they're roughly 400 yards away, and then you can dial in your firing solution either using the turrets or the reticle. I prefer the reticle, but that's up to everybody else out there, and you guys can make your own choice there. And engage that target as you see it there. Same thing if you put their feet on the windage stadia line where the top of their head is, say it comes up to the 8, then they're 800 yards away. And again, you can use that reticle as long as you know what your dope is for your round that you're using, and engage at will. So there's definitely some cool features again built in there that you're just not going to see with a lot of other mill-based Christmas tree style reticles. The last reticle that we're going to go over is going to be the ACSS HUD DMR. This one happens to be the 5.56. However, they make one in 308 as well. And honestly, guys, depending on how you zero your rifle, you can use either one for either one. If you get in there and check out the Primary Arms manual that comes with it, it will tell you where to zero with certain rounds for both the 5.56 and the 308. But that's we'll roll it in here on your screen, but trust me on that one, it's a video for another day. I actually have a video on it. But the HUD DMR reticle, I've said this before, is my favorite BDC reticle on the market. It's simply just fantastic, and it's so fast, which is excellent. So what you see here, it looks like a lot of the ACSS reticles out there that you'll see on ACOGs and other optics. However, this one here just has more information without being, I guess, to use a cliche word, cluttered. So at the top there, you guys can see those ranging points there. That's to measure someone, again, as we talked about earlier, and that gives you the approximate range that they are if they're standing away from you, and you can engage at will. And what's really nice about the HUD DMR is that if you zero it correctly, you don't have to know like your dope. You don't have to know your dope card or anything like that, because it's built right into it. So it's just super, super fast. So if you range someone, let's say with those vertical lines there on top, and it comes out that they're 600 yards away, all you got to do is put your stadium mark at the 600-yard line and engage with your wind holds as you see appropriate based on your windage calls. In the center there, we have that nice fine chevron with the donut of death as well. Like I said, 3X, it's pretty capable up close and personal for snapshots. Again, if you're hunting in the woods or anything like that, or whatever you may be doing with your reticle. So getting into it in sort of finer detail, you guys will see here the measuring that I mentioned earlier based on half a torso. So if you actually want to measure a full-size person, you can essentially just cut them in half when you're ranging them and do it that way. However, a lot of people don't always fully expose themselves in combat style situations, and you may not have a full shot. So it gives you the ability to measure it based on a 36-inch target. And then we have our BDC here. As we go down, you guys can see the zeroing point, and then the top, or rather the bottom of the chevron, is going to be 300 yards away, 400, 500, etc., all the way on down. And in reality, you're probably not going to have a lot of people that are standing at 600 yards. They're probably going to be standing at 540 or 620, and you can pretty darn close approximate in between where they're going to be there. So that certainly is good. And you also have the ability to horizontally range estimate them based on the width of that center stadia line. So that's how that works. If you put them, shoulder width 18 inches and it comes up to 4, that's approximately as far away as they are, and you can engage at will. Those dots that you guys see out to the side, those are the approximate size that the human head, excuse me. Again, this is based on military doctrine. It's not something that Primary Arms made up. If you put their head in there and it approximately fits within that circle, well, then they're approximately that far away. We did this. I was out in Nevada, in the desert out there. I was out there with the guy who created this system. Dimitri is his name, for those of you guys that don't know. And we were actually using just the head to approximate range, and then shooting laser rangefinders at people that we'd see out there in the desert. And the thing was spot on. I was actually quite impressed by it, honestly. You also see that we have the ability for leads here. So what that is again, based on military doctrine, average male holding a rifle is going to move at approximately 8.6 miles an hour, and gives you the hold off there, so that way you can engage moving targets relatively quickly without having to hold off in no man's land, depending on the distance that you're at. We also have the wind holds on the way down, which is nice. Those are huge. Where I shoot, you guys probably know because you hear the terrible audio, it's always windy. So those give you both 5 and 10 mile an hour full value winds. Full value, for those who don't know, is a wind that's coming directly perpendicular to where you're at, left to right or right to left. And that's going to push the round out there off to the side of your stadia line. Gives you the ability to have a reference point again. And even if you miss because you make the wind call incorrectly, as long as you're still holding in the same spot, you can quickly correct it there with those 2 points, because you'll see where your bullet hits, in theory anyway. Hopefully, if everything goes well. And then you guys can see here how the reticle actually breaks down in mils or MOA, if that's something that you're interested in. I know a lot of guys like the math behind it, and there is that if that's what you're looking for. I've got just a few more points that I want to touch on, guys. Number one is going to be ruggedness. You guys probably saw the footage of it if I could find it on my hard drives. Running this on the FN SCAR 17, known to be an optics killer. It's been fine. I had no issues with that. And we put about 600 rounds through the SCAR 17 with one of these on there, and it ate it up just fine. Not a huge sample size, but take that for what it's worth. Also, the Howler rifle that you guys saw up here earlier, that rifle has been beat and treated terribly. And that scope's never lost zero, no issues at all with it. It's been solid. So in terms of durability, I got nothing but good things to say about these so far, especially considering the price point and the weight. They're not overly heavy for the size magnification range that you get, particularly in a first focal point scope, which do tend to be a little bit heavier. I think they're like 25 ounces. I'll roll it in on the screen if I am wrong. So not overly heavy and not overly large either. So these scopes are kind of, in my opinion, they're at home. They look fine on, even a 16, 18-inch AR-15 if you're using it in sort of like a DMR style build. And they also look just fine and look at home and function just fine on a bolt action gun, if you want to run it out in that type of setup. So that is good. One thing that I'm sure folks will ask is, why would I get this primary arm scope versus this primary arm scope? So for those that don't know, full review on the channel is up on these, but this is a 4-14 first focal plane scope. Primary Arms still makes them. And these are less expensive. So roughly these are like $289, $299, and these ones MSRP anyway at $499. I should mention, while we're on the topic of cost, there will be a link down below in the video description if you guys pick them up. It'll also be pinned in the comment section. That link will not only take you to the scope, but it will get you guys a free mount as viewers of the channel. It's a deal I worked out with Primary Arms a while ago, so it's a benefit to everybody involved. You guys get a free scope, so our scope mount rather, which is always nice for using that link. So there's a few things going on here. Number one, in any metric that you can measure a scope by, whether that be like chromatic aberration, blurriness, fuzziness that you get, particularly on the higher magnifications, this scope is better. It's not that this scope is bad or unusable. It's still good. I still recommend these for folks who have a tighter budget, but this one's just better. The turrets are better. They're more positive. Not that these are bad, because I don't want to disparage this scope, but it's just the glass is cleaner, the turrets are better. The actual turning of the dial is easier. One reason, of course, is because it has that raised ledge on there, but this one's a little bit not as smooth, I guess we could say. The illumination dial here on this one will prevent you a lot of times from mounting levels, guys who like to mount levels on their scopes, or it'll limit some of the mounts that you can actually use with it as well, because it kind of comes up here nice and snug, whereas we have a lot of room here on the tube. On this scope, I should mention, these are 30mm tubes, so pretty much all of your aftermarket mounts or rings will work with them. But yeah, really just again, and you actually obviously get more magnification here with these being 3 to 18, and you also get a faster or a quicker firing solution when you're down dialed in at 3 versus 4 that this can go to. The iBox is also a little bit more forgiving on these versus these. Again, I'm not bad mouthing the 4 to 14s, they're very good. But there are advantages rather to going with this optic in my opinion. So it really just depends what you want to do. And I just mentioned the turrets, and it reminded me, folks always ask me to do box tests, and every now and then I'll throw one in a video, particularly on higher end scopes, but they bore me. I don't want to subject you guys to watching it. However, we did do a ladder test on this one here, this exact scope, and it was dead on. So tracking wise, I see no issues with it. But that said, I will always say this, and I've said it about $5,000 scopes that I talked about here on the channel. It's very, very difficult to get turrets that are tracking perfectly when you get out to really long distances. So if you're, shooting out 1,500, 1,800 yards, close to a mile, and you're shooting at those distances, you'll start to notice that this might be 0.0001 mil off when you run the turret. So it's just something to keep in mind. Additionally, I should always say that with these ones here, the actual reticle itself, when you look at it, is cleaner and crisper. And I've never noticed that with primary arm scopes, with the exception of the ACOGs. You really notice how crisp that thing is on the ACOGs when you compare it to something like this or some of their budget 1 to 6s or whatever the case may be. But the actual etching on the glass of that first focal plane reticle is just sharper on these ones. Just everything about it. The dots are sharper, the actual chevron sharper, those sorts of things. So that's why you would get this over this one. However, both are good. I'm not saying one is bad over the other. Again, there's a bunch of reticles that I didn't cover here as well. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of the ones that I have, but I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. It's a good scope. I recommend them for sure. If you guys have any questions about them that I didn't cover in the video, you can always post those down below in the comments section. However, the best place to reach me, as always, is over at my Facebook page that you guys see here on your screen. I answer all the messages I get there. Sometimes it takes me a couple days. There's only one of me and there's a few 100,000 of you, so be patient. But I will get to you. Again, I answer everyone I see there, so that is good. If you guys are subscribed here already, thank you very much. If you're not subscribed and you like these types of videos, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well, because I know a lot of my subscribers aren't seeing my videos these days coming up in their feed. If you've done both of those and you're still not seeing them, I recommend you sign up for my email list. You can sign up anyway. I recommend that. But you can sign up at the sign up button at my Facebook page or at the sign up button over at mrgunsandgear.com. I only send out one email a week. Basically has all the videos that I've released that week, so that way there's no social media barrier, giant company between the two of us and you guys seeing the content. And I also put a few deals that I find along the way in there as well for you guys. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next video.
You